Hello and welcome to Smashterpieces, a casual walk through the history of the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate roster. My name is Joe.
My name's Matt.
And for anybody new here, what we do on this show is we are playing one game for every character in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. That includes Echo Fighters, because a couple people have asked me recently if Echo Fighters are included. And yes, they sure are. And we are here to talk about our third game. That's right, we're here to talk about the game representing fighter number 28, because I just realized for the last two episodes I haven't said what fighter it's representing, though luckily it's kind of easy to figure that out for those two.
Well, considering that the name of the game is in the fighter names.
Yeah, but this is for fighter number 28, Pit, released on the NES in 1986. It is Kid Icarus.
This was an extremely experimental game for its time.
Boy, was it.
And it was very ambitious as well, I think. But unfortunately still has the same issue that Ice Climber had with the physics of jumping. Don't make a lot of sense.
No, they don't. It's very floaty. Like, really, really floaty, kind of.
Yes, but it's also kind of... And Ice Climber was like this too, but like once you jump, you're committed to that jump. And we've kind of come to understand that that's not really great in precision platforming.
Mm-hmm. We'll get to it later, but our next game is actually kind of similar. But that's just how NES games were. I think that's a good, considering the past two games and the next game will be like that. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of how the NES was, and like. It's not. This one can't even say pre-Super Mario Brothers, because this game came out after Super Mario Brothers. Not long after, to be fair, but this is a post Super Mario Brothers game.
Yeah.
So I've already warned you that I'm going to put you on the spot here, but hey, let's go ahead and do it. Hey, Matt, what's the plot of Kid Icarus? Because this is our first game with a plot, sort of.
Well, let us go back to the distant past to an age when gods and men lived together in harmony. There was once a kingdom called Angel Land. This kingdom was ruled by two beautiful goddesses, Palutena, who administered light, and Medusa, who ruled darkness. Palutena lived in the palace in the sky and administered light so that man could live in happiness. And bathed in this light, man grew food and lived in peace. However, Medusa was the goddess of darkness, and she was different. Medusa hated mankind. She took great pleasure in drying up the crops that man took great pains to grow, and in turning people into stone statues. In her anger, Palutena changed Medusa into an ugly monster and banished her to the deep, dark underworld. For being changed into this ugly monster and forced to live in the underworld, Medusa promised to take over the palace in the sky where Palutena lived. So great was Medusa's anger that she joined forces with the monsters and evil spirits of the underworld, and Medusa's army soon began to surpass Palutena's army in strength. Soon a war between Palutena and Medusa began. Medusa led a surprise attack on Palutena's army, which could barely fend off the attack. Palutena's army suffered major losses and was heavily defeated in the final battle. What's more, Medusa's army took the three sacred treasures, the Mirror Shield, the Arrow of Light, and the Wings of Pegasus, away from them. Almost all of the warriors in Palutena's army were turned into stone statues, and Palutena herself was imprisoned deep in the Palace of the Sky. The peaceful realm of Angel Land came to be inhabited by foul and terrible monsters, and was turned into a land of darkness ruled by the wicked Medusa. Locked in the depths of the palace in the sky, Palutena's strength was drained to its last. As a last resort, she sought the help of the angel youth Pit, who was being held prisoner locked in a deep dungeon in the underworld. Pit was a valiant warrior who used to be in charge of Palutena's personal bodyguards. Armed with a bow and arrows brought to him through Palutena's magical strength, Pit attempted an escape from the underworld. The guard at this time was low in number, as Medusa's army had advanced to the palace in the sky. Pit succeeded in his escape, and set out on his long adventure to rescue Palutena. Yet to defeat Medusa, he had to get the three sacred treasures. Will Pit be able to restore Palutena's light and return it to Angel Land? Only you can answer that question.
Man, I'm really impressed you pulled all of that out of your brain.
Yeah, 100%.
So, I said, this is like, Ice Climber technically had a plot, but it was literally just, the condor took our vegetables. Go get our vegetables, please.
I don't know, did you read the manual for Ice Climber?
I did not, and...
Well, I guess I know what I gotta pull up.
It's too late for that. We're past Ice Climber. So let's let's talk about this game. This game is split into 3 areas and then a final level. It is the Underworld, the Overworld, and Skyworld. And so I think let's just talk about each of the areas kind of briefly. The one that's going to take the most talk. Hey, Matt, let's talk about the Underworld.
Well, so real quick, I just double-checked the Ice Climber manual. And the entire manual is approximately the length of the Kid Icarus story section.
What the crap? That's awesome. That's beautiful. Oh.
Okay, so the Underworld, this game, the issue with this game is that it seems to, like, occur in reverse.
Yeah, it sure does.
Like, okay, you gotta have a vertical scrolling level to start off because you're escaping the Underworld. But the problem is that the Underworld is the most difficult level in the game.
Like, by far.
Yeah, part of that is because of the vertical scrolling. And based on that story that you were setting up, you have to have the vertical scrolling. But the third world, which I think was Skyworld, right?
Yeah.
Skyworld is easier than the Underworld.
And it's also vertical, all of it.
Yeah, so I don't understand what happened there. Like, the level design happens in reverse.
Another big part of it is that by the time you get to Skyworld, you have a ton of health, you have a ton of hearts, your bow is stronger, so enemies are no longer... And you have at that point, you have, like, the magic rod and stuff, so the enemies aren't really a problem all that much anymore. It's just the platforming, and you've kind of gotten used to the platforming once you've hit Skyworld.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, the enemy layout itself is also not as difficult as the Underworld.
Yeah.
Like, just in every respect, Skyworld is not as hard as the Underworld. And, like, the Overworld is stupid easy, but that's because it's a horizontal level.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, you had to do that because like I said, with the story that they were writing, escaping the Underworld to go back to the Overworld and then Skyworld, they couldn't have a horizontal scrolling level to start. But still, it's just the difficulty curve is so nonsensical. It starts out with the hardest level, then goes to the easiest level, and then has one that's kind of okay.
And we were warned about that ahead of time. A lot of people told us, like, once you get out of the Underworld, the game becomes really easy. Like, the hardest part is literally clawing your way out of hell.
Yeah, and that's... Like, in the story, though, like, it doesn't justify that being the hardest. It says that, there's so few guards left in the Underworld because they're all in Palutena's temple.
Which, if I had been willing to interrupt you during that, I would have called bullshit, because no. Like, that is...
It's wrong.
But like, yeah, you're right. The story itself contradicts the fact that the Underworld is the hardest level.
Yeah, it's the difficulty curve is just not well set up in this game. And, like, in addition to it being the most difficult platforming section at the beginning, which is a very bad platforming section, because I never felt like my deaths from platforming were fair. And I a lot of times when an enemy beat me, I was like, okay, that sucks, that's unfortunate, but, I could have been more careful. Platforming never honestly felt like it was my fault, because it always felt like the controls themselves were fighting me. And that's not a good feeling to have in a game like this.
And I want to be perfectly fair to the game. It's not as bad as Ice Climber. Not nearly as bad as Ice Climber, I don't think.
I think it's difficult to have a game as bad as Ice Climber.
I also agree with that sentiment.
Like, I think that Ice Climber is going to be the worst game that we play on this list.
And I think a lot of other problems come not just from the platforming, but there's also, as you have mentioned in conversations with me and others before recording this, there's no checkpoints anywhere in any of the levels.
These levels are way too long to have no checkpoints.
Yeah, they're super long levels, and there are no checkpoints. And then, like, health pickups are exceedingly rare.
Yeah, it's this is a game that's honestly not very long. It just takes so long because every death sets you back like a good 10 minutes.
I don't know. I think I see what they were going for, but yeah, if they were going to go the no checkpoints route, which they could do checkpoints at this point. Super Mario Brothers does checkpoints, and its levels are like 5 minutes long. If that.
No, they're like a minute long.
Yeah, and they still have mid-level checkpoints. And you're telling me this one couldn't? Like, no, I don't believe you. And it's one of those things that you see in a lot of NES games where it's just like, we need to make this game hard or it's going to be too short.
Yeah, which I think for the most part we have moved beyond.
You mean in this show or just in gaming in general?
In gaming in general.
In gaming in general, I think we've moved beyond because we have other ways of making games feel a little bit longer, for better or for worse. Because we have so much space on our medium now, we don't really have to rely on making it super hard and have the player take a really long time to get through a specific area in order to rely on that making our game feel longer and therefore worth the money, I guess, was the logic.
Yeah, well, nowadays we have actual content.
Yeah.
Which, I was talking to our friend Jesse, who has been sort of a gaming historian, giving us a lot of details going through. Gave us a lot of information that we didn't know about these games. And Jesse told me that Kid Icarus was finished 2 days before it was released.
Which sure shows.
Yes, it is a game that was extremely rushed. Or at the very least, like, came down to the wire in unfortunate ways.
Yeah. And we were told that that's basically just a straight up. It's just because of the disk drive.
But like it's also a matter of like the fact that this game was finished with so little time left speaks to how little polish the game has, which is to say none. Like they made sure the game physically worked and called it a day because they didn't have the time to do anything else.
It was not play tested. It was tested for bugs and probably tested to make sure that the game didn't break at any point, but it was not play tested to make sure the game was, you know,
fun,
enjoyable to play. And I don't. And that is not to say that for me the worst part isn't even the platforming levels. The worst part is the other kind of level, which is the dungeons.
The dungeons are so poorly designed.
They're awful.
The fact that it's so difficult to have a functional map in this game makes it so the exploration of the dungeons is more frustrating than it's worth, in addition to the fact that despite the dungeons being huge with so many different ways that you can go, there is one critical path that if you deviate from it, you're just not going to find your way through.
Yeah. And like, I suppose, but logically you can say that mazes are like that. A maze is like that usually. There is one path that'll get you to the end.
But mazes aren't fun.
Mazes aren't fun to be in, like, in video games. There is not a single maze in a video game where I can think, yeah, no, I enjoy that. Because they're not knowing where you are. Like, it's not even just not knowing where to go. It's not knowing where you are at that point.
It's like there's no meaningful exploration to be had. Like, there is one critical path. If you do not go on that path, you will make no progress unless you're, like, really invested on getting a ton of the centurions to help you in the boss battle. Like, there is nothing meaningful to be found off the critical path. There's no reward for actually exploring the dungeon. It is just obstacles.
And even with that, like, wanting to get all the centurions, they're not that useful, especially for the first two bosses. They're pretty much worthless.
And they're not even that useful for when you're fighting Pandora. They are only theoretically useful because they might do something against Pandora.
In Hudraw, they can't hit Hudraw, pretty much. And in Twimbelos, they also basically just can't hit Twimbelos because the centurions all spawn above you. And Twimbelos is small. It's your height, pretty much.
Yeah.
So they're worthless. Like, it's a cool idea of go around the dungeon and collect these little creatures that will help you fight the boss, but they don't work for the bosses that you made.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like the only reward for exploration isn't even worth doing. And that's like part of the failing of the game. Like meaningfully exploring is impossibly difficult, and there's no actual reason to do it.
And not to mention, like, they're also just boring. There's nothing to explore.
Yeah.
You'll hit points in the dungeons where you'll encounter the same room in a row, like 3 times in a row.
Yes, which, in fairness, was not terribly uncommon in the NES era.
Yeah, and I can't blame them for that, but, like, then they should have done something else, because it's not interesting, even slightly. Like, they should have gone a different direction.
It's all made so much worse by the Eggplant Wizard.
The Eggplant Wizard is one of 2 things about the dungeons that I find the worst things, but I think the Eggplant Wizard wins out by far. Oh my god.
Yeah, the Eggplant Wizard, the problem with the Eggplant Wizard is that the way it works is that if they hit you once, doesn't matter what your health is, you are now permanently turned into an eggplant. And there is nothing you could do except find the one single room in the dungeon that has a nurse who can heal you.
Being an eggplant takes away your bow, takes away your mallets, and it doesn't go away.
Yeah, you have to go to this one healing point, which, again, off the critical path, once you leave that critical path, you have to go back. You basically have to go back to the start of the dungeon.
Yeah.
Like, the dungeons are so designed that if you leave the critical path, you have to go back to the beginning, or you're not finding the critical path again. And you are punished for exploring at all. And you have to do that exploring if you get hit by the Eggplant Wizard. And there's like 8 Eggplant Wizards in any given dungeon. And
most of the time, they are placed in front of an important room.
Yes, you cannot avoid them. Like, you have to face them.
And I know that while watching your stream in particular, and I eventually got to the same point, though it wasn't as hard for me. During your playthrough, you were trying to save state as little as possible.
Yes.
We both sort of had different ideas on that, which, I mean, is obviously because we both sort of approach playing NES games differently, which is perfectly fine. But you didn't want to save state pretty much at all. Then you had, like, one encounter with the Eggplant Wizards and said, oh, yeah, no, never mind. I'm save stating before Eggplant Wizard rooms.
Yeah, because it's not worth it. Like,
it's not fair.
Like, the Eggplant Wizard, like, up until that point, I was like, okay, this game isn't great, but it doesn't have any, like, clear pitfalls that would make it bad, that would make it too much. The Eggplant Wizard is the shortfall that makes it bad, that makes it too much. Mm-hmm. It is the exact point where the game stops being good or worth playing.
Like, and I get that they're supposed to be funny, they're supposed to be, like, hilarious for people watching, maybe even, and they're just funny for the dev. It's the dev's way of pulling a prank on you, but gameplay-wise, they're not fair.
They would be funny if there was one of them in the game.
Yeah, I agree with that. They'd be funny if they were a super rare enemy that only appeared once, maybe twice, in the entirety of the game. But because there's, like, 8 Eggplant Wizard rooms in any given dungeon,
they're everywhere.
Like, that's not fair. There was a point in one of the dungeons on the critical path, I'm pretty sure, where you would pass through 2 Eggplant rooms in a row.
Oh, it was more than just one point. It happened all the time.
Like, and there were points where I don't know if you ever had this experience. I think you might have once, while I was watching at least, where I would crawl into, or I would go down a ladder, and literally the instant the room loaded in, bam, I was already hit by an eggplant.
I never had that happen, though.
Before, you had it happen one time. Only one time. I remember clearly because I shouted about it and said, get used to that, and then it never happened again. But it happened to me a lot, where I'd walk into a room, and before I even had a chance to put in any input, I was already an eggplant. And that's not fair.
It's just, it really is like a matter of, like, I was enjoying the game until that happened. And, like, at that moment, it became so much more frustrating than I was okay with.
And my other least favorite part of the dungeons, though you experienced this a lot later than I did, I think. So, throughout the game, you will encounter doors. And sometimes these doors will be an enemy room, and sometimes these doors will be a treasure pot room, but sometimes they'll be a trial. And if you complete this trial, which is just this guy sends a bunch of tiles flying at you, and if you live to the time limit, I think it's like, I want to say it's like 20, 30 seconds, he gives you one of 3. You can pick a power-up, basically.
And only one of them is worth it.
2 of them are worth it, I think. Or all 3 of them together make the game really, really easy. But one of them is the most worth it, obviously, which is the magic rod, which puts 2 rotating shields around you and basically makes it so that enemies aren't really that much of a problem anymore, which is always the first one you should get if you're thinking of playing this game. Get the magic rod first, for sure. But
I never got the magic rod.
Really? I thought you had.
I got the shield and the longbow. The longbow is the only one I would say is worth it.
The shield? What do you mean the shield?
The shield, the thing, the rotating things around you.
That's the magic rod.
Oh.
No, the other one's fire arrows. It's fire arrows, a longbow, and the magic rod. You get one of those items, and then you get to the dungeon, and it turns those items off. And there's no real reason for it. It's just the dungeon turns your items off.
Which is frustrating with the longbow especially. Because I believe the longbow is the only weapon that's really worth it. The shields I never found really really helping me enough. And the fire arrows, I never even bothered with that one.
I think I got them literally right before the 3rd dungeon, which at that point, now I'm never going to use them again.
Yeah, it's a matter of, they can, these items can be useful, but they're just, the act of getting them is so ridiculously difficult that only the longbow is really changes the game enough to be worth it.
And in general, I just have a problem with, here are these things you got that make the levels easier. By the way, we're turning them off for this level. No reason, just fuck you. That's frustrating to me. I don't like that.
Yeah, it effectively punishes you for having these items.
Yeah. But let's talk about the best part of Kid Icarus. Let's talk about the bosses.
Oh, boy.
How did this game turn into a game with super awesome boss fights?
You mean in one of the sequels?
In what? Yeah, how did this franchise turn in, spawn a game that has super awesome boss fights?
Because they looked at what is our progenitor's greatest flaw and elected to fix that.
So you got 4 bosses in this game. We'll talk about the 4th one in conjunction with the last level, I guess. But the first one is Twimbelos, because it doesn't take a lot to talk about these bosses. Twimbelos is just Cerberus, and he's piss easy. Piss easy.
Yeah, there's nothing to that fight. I stun-locked him.
Yeah, and sometimes he jumps. And that's it. That's all he does. The second one is Hudra, which is the worst boss in the game by far. Which again is piss easy, but this time they added an extra layer of, but also takes forever to kill.
Hudra is just, it's just so boring.
Once you figure out his pattern that doesn't change at any point, he can't hit you. But also, by that point, you probably only do a maximum of 3 damage with your arrows. So you're doing 3 damage to this thing that has 200 health points.
Mm-hmm.
And so it takes forever. I'm pretty sure it took me 10 minutes to kill him.
The fight is approximately 8 years long.
And it's not fun.
No. And it's not all of the fights in Kid Icarus are difficult, but none of them are fun.
Pretty much.
They're either bullshit or boring. That's all.
And then you got Pandora, who is considered the hardest boss in the game, but
for good reason.
Yeah, and even she's not that hard, to be honest. But she has some weird, she has weird hitbox shit going on with her, where sometimes your arrow will just pass through her face, and it'll do nothing, and sometimes it'll hit her when you hit the exact same spot. It doesn't make any sense. And she's also got 200 health, but she doesn't have a pattern to her. She's that screensaver that we all used to watch of the ball that bounces around on the screen.
Yeah, she just kind of happens.
So that's the only reason she's hard, is because she's unpredictable. And then, of course, you've got the last level in the game, which is Palutena's castle, I think is what it's supposed to be, where you are given the three sacred treasures. At the temple, yeah, Palutena's temple. You're given the 3 sacred treasures, which is the mirror shield, and I don't even remember what the other 2 are. A really good bow, I guess. A helmet? I don't fucking remember. But you get them. And it's basically just an auto-scroller shooter level all of a sudden.
Yeah, and it's also not fun. Like, that's another factor of it's not particularly hard, but it's not at all fun.
And it loops until you have killed 50 enemies, which is another reason why it's not that fun. Because if you don't kill 50 enemies, which, spoiler alert, you're not going to on your first go-through, you just play the fucking level again.
And I remember when I was playing, I asked you, like, is there any way to tell how many enemies you've killed? And you were like, yes, when you've killed 50, Medusa will appear.
Yeah, that's the only indication. It doesn't give you a number or anything. The only reason I knew it was 50 is because I looked it up.
Were you, like, getting frustrated with it while you were playing it? Because it was just going on forever? I tend to not watch your stream for fear of spoilers.
No, that was one of the things that I stumbled on accident while doing a bit of pre-research. I try not to look into like what is in the actual levels when I'm doing that research, but that I accidentally stumbled on. I don't exactly remember how, but after that, after you've killed 50 enemies in this super slow shooter level, which that's the reason it's not fun. It's so slow.
Mm-hmm. It's approximately 8 years long.
You get to Thanatos / Medusa.
It's not Thanatos, it's Thanatos.
Oh, Thanatos, sorry, my bad.
Remember, that name is canon.
And we both had roughly the same experience with that boss fight, which was, this is kind of hard, and it's killed me a couple of times. Oh, I found the one spot to sit in where it legitimately cannot hit me, and I can hit it, so I guess I win now.
Mm-hmm. It is like at that point, the only thing that can hurt you is if Thanatos happens to like go in exactly the right path to damage you.
And it seems like he never does.
He very rarely does.
And so we both beat the final boss, which, funnily enough, from research later, I did learn that the final boss is considered the easiest boss in the entire game, and I can't imagine why.
I don't agree.
But yeah, we basically beat it by accidentally finding the magic spot to sit in.
I think Twin Bellows is the easiest boss.
I think I'd agree with that, because Twin Bellows, I didn't even need to find like the spot to stand in. I just beat him.
I stun-locked Twin Bellows by accident.
Yeah. So
it's hard to even say for certain that there is a boss in Twin Bellows.
I believe we both got the same ending, which the endings aren't... There's not much to the difference.
There's multiple endings?
There sure are. There is an ending where... The one that we got, where Pit is just sort of made the general of Palutena's army and puts on, like, this armor and everything. There is the ending where Pit morphs into Muscle Man Pit. There's the ending where Pit morphs into Muscle Man Pit, and then Palutena kisses him on the cheek. And I don't remember what the last one is, but I know there is one more. And we both got the one where Pit puts on the armor, because I believe to get anything else, you need to have full strength, all of the magical items, and all of the health upgrades.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, it's weird. And I think this is our first encounter with a game that has... well, this is our first encounter with a game that has an ending, first of all. But this is our first encounter with a game that has multiple endings, too.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's interesting. I at least find that kind of interesting. The thing that frustrates me the most about this game is that if it had been made a couple years later, I think this game would have been good.
Well, I guess we'll get to test that theory.
I guess so, because we do have... we have one more Kid Icarus game of this style on this list. I've been told that it's a little bit different, and it's a little bit easier, but outside of that, I don't know anything about Myths and Monsters.
Mm-hmm. And then after that, we've got a good 25 years before we see the series again.
Sure.
Although I believe that Myths and Monsters is not canon.
Is it not? Interesting.
To my understanding, nothing from Myths and Monsters made it into Uprising.
I guess we'll find out. But I can't really think of anything else to say on the subject of Kid Icarus.
There's not really much else to say, which is a problem unique to these early episodes of the show, because as we go on, like, we are discussing everything that is in the game, except the Reapers. We somehow never mentioned the Reapers at all.
That is true. The Reapers suck.
The Reapers are not that bad.
I think they suck a lot.
I never had any real problem with them.
Though I think the funniest thing that comes out of the Reapers is if there's already a bunch of enemies on the screen and then you alert the Reapers. And like, I really, really like that. Where the game starts slowing down because it has to summon Reapers, but there's enemies on the screen, but it has to summon little Reapers. So the game just doesn't know how to respond, and it starts running at like 2 frames a second.
My thing about fighting the Reapers was that I before, like, walking past them, I would learn their pattern of moving so that I could sneak past them, and it worked an awful lot.
And they do have, it's not a super recognizable pattern or a super consistent one, but they do have a pattern. You did figure that out.
Yeah, and there is some RNG to it. It's not completely predictable, but it's predictable enough that you can make an educated guess as to where he's going to go.
Yeah, which I found very interesting because I never figured that out.
Yeah, and that's a big part of why the Reapers were never a problem for me, because once I figured out that pattern, it's like, yeah, sometimes they hecked me up, and sometimes they were in a place they were positioned in such a way that they were completely unavoidable. But for the most part, they didn't give me trouble.
And the other thing we didn't discuss that we should discuss real quick, hit me with your least favorite and favorite song in the game. I know the soundtrack is not huge, but...
I don't remember most of the music, to be honest.
For me, I think the best song in the game is Underworld, by far.
I can agree with that. I know that I didn't like the dungeon music. I can say that pretty confidently.
I like the dungeon music. I think the problem with the dungeon music is that it overstays its welcome because the levels are so long and drawn out.
And it's not.
Boring.
It's like the melody's not good enough to carry it.
Yeah, it's like it's what, a 10-15 second loop, honestly.
Yeah, and the underworld music is the most iconic music from this game for a reason, because it's good.
Yeah, it's very good. I did learn that in Brawl... So they fixed this in Smash 4, I found out recently. But in Brawl, the overworld music is in the game as Skyworld. But they did... I'm pretty sure. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But they fixed it in Smash 4. It is put down as overworld.
As I said, I legit do not remember most of the music.
I remember it mainly because, like, music is a big part when I play games, and also because of Smash. Because I remember the remixes. But yeah, I think that's something I want to do with all the games from here on is what's your favorite song, what's your least favorite song, and we're starting to get, like, the last 3 games had alright music, but we're gonna get into a few games from here. Pretty much the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games all have really famous music in them. So, well, maybe not one of them. One of them is slightly known. I wouldn't call it famous. But, yeah, we're going to start getting into the era of really, really good music on the NES. And I can't wait.
I might have to, like, study the soundtracks before we do episodes.
With that, before we get into talking about our next game, we actually have one thing that we got to cover, which is, since last we spoke, there was a direct.
Yes.
5 new characters were added, which for us means that 5 new games have been added to our list.
And we came distressingly close to the problem of there are not enough games to cover these characters. Which, by the way, Soccer, I do not put another Kid Icarus character in.
Please,
like, we
there
cannot
aren't
continue
anymore.
this show if you do.
We don't know what we're going to do. We've had that conversation with, like, distressingly... It's distressingly possible, and that has made us so anxious in our conversations the past few days. Like
there is just literally nothing we could do if it. Like, Kid Icarus has never had a crossover with anything. It's just been these 3 games.
Because neither Magnus or Phosphora have been confirmed to still be assist trophies. So, who knows? We'll see, I guess. But the 5 games are as follows. First off, we'll start with Simon. For Simon, we will be playing the original Castlevania on the NES. The win condition for that is defeat Dracula.
Stage 18.
After that, we have Richter. Richter's game will be Castlevania Rondo of Blood, released in 1993 for the PC Engine. The win condition for that is also defeat Dracula in Final Stage, which is the most descriptive thing I could find in any walkthrough that I skimmed. So that's going to be fun. After that, we've got Chrom. For Chrom, we'll be playing the last game we have where Awakening characters show up.
Unless we're going to play Heroes.
I guess. Which is Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE. The win condition for that is perform the Opera of Light. I'm looking forward to that one. I like that game a lot. I think it gets a bad rap, but I understand why. After that, we have Dark Samus. Luckily, that one was super easy. We will be playing Metroid Prime 2 Echoes. The win condition for that is defeat Emperor Ing and escape. And last but not least is the most complicated one. So, buckle your seatbelts, folks. For King K. Rool, we are not only adding a game, we're shuffling a couple of people around. So, Diddy Kong has been taken off of Donkey Kong 64. It is now on Donkey Kong Country. And K. Rool has taken his spot on Donkey Kong 64. Meanwhile, Donkey Kong himself has been reassigned to Donkey Kong Country Returns for the Wii.
So as a consequence of K. Rool being added, we have added a game without K. Rool.
Yeah, which the win condition for Donkey Kong Country Returns is defeat Tiki Tong. So that's the 5 games that have been added. I assume we'll probably get 3-4 more at minimum. Just because we are including Echoes.
I think we're going to still see a number of Echoes in this game.
Yeah, so, like, this show's going to go for a while, guys. We ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, people keep saying to us, like, well, are you trying to beat all these games before Smash comes out? And it's like, absolutely not.
Hell no.
Like, I cannot stress that enough. That is not and never has been our plan.
There is no deadline for this show.
I think the only way it would be physically possible for us to finish all of these games is if, like, before Smash Ultimate came out, is if this was our full-time job, and even then, we're not sure we could pull it off.
Yeah, even then, I'm almost positive I couldn't pull it off. There are a couple of really long games on this list. Like, we just added another big JRPG in Tokyo Mirage Sessions.
Tokyo Mirage Sessions is the Teen Titans Go of Fire Emblem.
It is quite long. You got Xenoblade on here. You got Final Fantasy VII. Like, no, we're not finishing this before Smash comes out. That's impossible.
Yeah, and, maybe we'll have another Xenoblade.
Who knows? That's also distressingly possible. I don't know why distressingly, but that's also possible. So, things are kind of up in the air there. And I think we got lucky with our next game, which we'll get to in a second, because it is literally the next game that would have been on the list anyways.
Yay!
But for future reference, if we do have a point where, let's say, we're in the SNES era and an NES character gets announced, the very next game will be us going back to play that NES game. And also, I've had a couple people ask me, like, what are you guys going to do with DLC? DLC will be handled after the initial list is done.
Which I'm not sure how much I agree with that, but okay.
I think it's a better idea to just get the initial roster done with and then hit DLC up. But the point is,
want to play ARMS.
The point is, either way, we will do DLC characters. Until Sakurai stops adding characters, we will keep playing games.
Yep, and it is unlikely that Sakurai will be finished with Ultimate before we are finished with this.
Yeah, there's no way. So let's go ahead, I guess, and jump into our next game, which is Castlevania. Funnily enough, something I want to point out, I put in, so people who have listened to the show have probably noticed that every episode starts with a song from the game we're talking about and ends with a song from the next game, and then vice versa, and it sort of has a sort of progression from there. I was kind of freaking out about what I was going to put in for Castlevania, mainly because I didn't want to just put in Vampire Killer, the 8-bit track from the game itself, because that felt a little boring to me. But, like, Simon just got put into Smash. I don't have access to any of those Smash songs. And then I found out that the song in his trailer, the version of Vampire Killer, is just the Castlevania Judgment version of Vampire Killer. It's not even a Smash-specific remix.
Huh.
So that's interesting.
And then we've also got the song that was on the blog.
Yeah, but I don't really have access to that in any real capacity that I'd be able to use it for this show. It's too short. But, yeah, Castlevania. I enjoy this game. It's not one of my favorites, because I'm still not a huge fan of NES games in general, but I have played this game before. I do enjoy it. I think it's very good.
I was about to say that this is the first game that either of us have played, but I had played Duck Hunt, so I guess that's not true.
Castlevania is the first game on this list that I think is actually straight up considered a classic. All of these other games, like, people know about them, but I don't hear people calling any of them a classic in the traditional sense of you can still go back to it and it's still a good game. Because that's not the case with Ice Climber or Kid Icarus, in my humble opinion. But Castlevania, I think, is pretty good. It still has the problem of jumps are weird. We don't know how jumps work in video games yet. But unlike Kid Icarus and unlike Ice Climber, the game is designed fully around that. And I don't remember there being that much real precision platforming in Castlevania. And maybe I'm just remembering wrong. But yeah, I think this will be a little bit more of an enjoyable experience than our last two games.
I have not played Castlevania. I have nothing to add on it.
Well, I'm looking forward to the music. I'm looking forward to actually beating it. I've never actually beaten it using save states. At one point a couple years ago, I just decided I'm going to play Castlevania, and I made it to the Grim Reaper and then accidentally save stated myself into a corner that I could not get out of without dying. So that ended that run.
Another point against save states.
Well, a point against save states during bosses at the very least. So I'm looking forward to playing this game again. That's really all I have to say. There's not much to say. Do you know anything about Castlevania whatsoever?
I mean, I know that it helped inspire a genre alongside Metroid.
Eventually.
In the Metroidvania genre.
Eventually it did. These are not like that. The first game to be like that was Symphony of the Night, which was a PlayStation 1 game.
Interesting.
So these Castlevania, all the way up to that, is very level-based. There might have been some RPG elements added later, but this one does not have any. But they're entirely level-based.
Interesting.
So, yeah, Symphony of the Night is the one where it became a quote-unquote Metroidvania, where it was more like Metroid, where it was about exploration and getting power-ups to help you get into other areas and stuff like that.
How odd. Maybe we should have focused on that one instead of Rondo of Blood.
Maybe. And there's still time to change our mind on that. We'll see, but...
I don't know. Maybe we'll see if anyone has an opinion on that. Because, I don't know, well, to some extent, I do want it to focus more on Richter.
Yeah. When we were talking about that, like, it was a pro and con thing. It was... Rondo of Blood focuses on Richter. It's Richter's game. But Symphony of the Night would be an example of the other kind of Castlevania game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of a hard balance to hit, and in the end we went to, well, it would make more sense to play the game that Richter is fully playable in for more than 5 minutes.
Yeah. Which is not always the decision we make, because we're playing Blazing Blade instead of Binding Blade, but Blazing Blade is considered a good game.
Yeah.
So, It's not a decision with an easy answer. Rondo of Blood is not considered a bad game, so
yeah.
There's not like a clear reason not to play Rondo of Blood.
I believe like the only reason in that vein I can even think of is that Symphony of the Night is considered a better game, because Symphony of the Night is considered one of those revolutionary, completely changed an entire genre game, like perfected a genre.
Mm-hmm. We'll see what it comes down to eventually. It's not it. I don't know. It's still something I'm unsure about. We're still making changes to the lineup and all this as we go. So,
and we have a little bit before we get to Richter. So we'll see. If you have opinions, tweet at us or post on the Facebook page.
I think that for Richter we should just play JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Eyes of Heaven.
Yeah, and then get spoiled for literally every part we haven't seen.
Assuming we're not caught up by then.
Yeah, but it also does the manga stuff. Are you planning on reading the manga?
I am, actually, because I would like to finish JoJo before I die.
There you go. But anyways, that's all we really got. I hope y'all enjoyed our talk about Kid Icarus, and I hope y'all enjoy our streams of Castlevania. I will bring up, stream-wise, we did have a point where we kind of realized that if we're only going to play on stream, these games are never going to be beaten.
Yeah, because that was a large obstacle in Kid Icarus for me. And it's like at some point I just had to say, okay, you know what, I have to play today.
Yeah, so we can't promise that the entirety of games will be streamed, but I think it's a pretty okay promise to be like, yeah, at least some of it. At least.
A good bit of it.
Yeah, so if something happens and we get through a game without streaming it, that's probably why. Like, life can get in the way and all that sort of stuff. But with that, thank you for listening. I'm Joe.
I'm Matt.
And we will see you all next time for Castlevania.